In the Android world, it's very easy to pick the top Samsung or the top Google Pixel phone. But what if you went a little bit left of mainstream? Can you find something just as good that costs a bit less? For instance, the Honor Magic 7 Pro has some incredible specs and is a highly capable phone, so should you pick this up instead of the Galaxy S25 Ultra, saving some money in the process? I'm Cam Bunton, this is Trusted Reviews, and in this video, I'll answer those questions. Now, when it comes to design, there are three ways of looking at it. There's aesthetics, or how nice it looks, how comfortable and easy it is to grip and use, and how durable it is. For at least two of those, Honor wins. The curved glass sloping into the metal edges feel much nicer in the hand, combined with the more generous rounding on the corners. All told, just a more pleasant experience to grip in one hand, or two. It's also ever so slightly narrower than the Samsung, which helps gripability. Aesthetically, I also found it a lot more interesting and attractive again because of those curves on the front and the back and around the edges of the glass. And still, there's undeniable appeal for some in that quite plain looking minimalist Samsung aesthetic. And of course, aesthetics is just personal preference, there's no right or wrong here. But as far as durability goes, Samsung does have the Gorilla Glass Armor 2 on the front, which is really impact and scratch resistant. At the same time, Honor says that its own glass is also really tough, but without subjecting them to torture tests, I can't verify that. Still, because the Samsung's glass is completely flat and the Honor's has exposed corners and curves, it's more likely that the glass on the Magic 7 Pro would come into contact with other objects more easily when you drop it or bang it against stuff, perhaps making it more likely to experience damage and scratching. As for water resistance, the Honor has a dual rating that protects it against warm jets of water as well as the usual cold water submersion, which the Samsung also has. It just means the Honor is more capable of surviving if you squirt warm jets of water at it than Samsung's. So I guess in the design and practicality and build stakes, the Honor wins. Now, there are a couple of things that make a difference when it comes to the displays on these two phones, and it doesn't have a huge amount to do with pixel density, refresh rate, or size, because Samsung has the marginally bigger display and slightly higher sharpness. What makes a difference in favor of Samsung's phone, as with last year's model, is the anti-reflective qualities of the glass that sits on top of the display panel. It means that when you're in an area or an environment with bright light shining directly on the screen, or even just generally around you, it tames that glare and the reflections a lot more effectively than the Honor can. So even though Honors can get really bright and cut through some of it really effectively, it still can't cut through the super bright spots. It means regardless of the situation you're in, the Samsung phone can generally be set to a lower brightness and still be nice and clear. Even in areas with light reflecting you wouldn't normally notice, like your white ceiling reflecting in the panel, it cuts that out, making it more visible from pretty much any angle. Color-wise, there is a bit of difference. Honor's panel is generally a little warmer than Samsung's, which has a more neutral tone to it, so elements like my skin would appear more pinkish and red on the Honor phone. But a reason for that is Honor likes to tune out the blue light and is generally warmer to help with eye strain. But at the same time, both do allow you a lot of tweaking in the system settings to set the color balance and saturation to your preferred levels if you want, so there's a lot of flexibility here. Both are vibrant, colour-rich displays with inky black levels in the contrast, so both fantastic to watch movies and game on. For those concerned about software support, both of these phones are going to get upgrades for quite a long time. Honor's phone is getting 5 years of updates, Samsung will deliver 7 major OS updates to the S25 Ultra. In short, both will keep getting updates for the time you have the phone, presuming you don't plan on keeping it for more than 4 or 5 years. There are other features worth considering. In the software, although it's messy to begin with, Honor's got a lot to love in Magic OS. I love the way you can arrange folders and adjust their size on the home screen. Samsung does let you expand them and make them larger, but they're only one set size. Honor lets you expand app icons to feature shortcuts right next to them as well for easy access to useful functions. So there's a bit more flexibility when it comes to arranging how you want things on your home screen. I also found it a lot more customizable in general. Both have really fast ultrasonic fingerprint sensors, but Honor also has the depth-based facial unlocking feature, which is more secure than the photo or selfie-based single camera system used on most other phones. Samsung, of course, has the built-in S Pen, which is super useful for making quick notes and marking up images, documents, and such. And it also has a feeling of AI being baked into the system quite a lot more than Honor's, although in my testing, I never really found that all that useful. Tweaking photos and removing items from the background can all be done from Google Photos, which is on both phones. The AI can be convenient for some to tweak phone settings, check calendars, football fixtures, font size, screen resolution with just a natural voice command. Plus the drawing assist can be fun too, creating digital art from your terrible sketches, but at the same time I didn't feel there were any make or break AI tools that mean you should choose the Samsung phone over the Honor. So let's move on to something that might push you one way or the other. The cameras. Now, both of these phones have strong camera systems with primary, ultra-wide and zoom lenses. Honor's optical zoom equivalent is 3 times zoom, Samsung's is 5 times, but with that said, with the Honor you can do a 6 times zoom that crops into the 3 times zoom sensor and does a decent job with detail and clarity. However, the one thing that stood out to me when testing the two phones was consistency in the Samsung phone. For the most part, it kept the same look and the performance across all lenses. Honor's didn't always do that and often struggled in scenes with extreme bright and dark levels. Like its HDR and color processing was too aggressive, lifting shadows in too many places and removing too much contrast. But also at the same time, smoothing out a lot of the details so that some parts of the image the texture was completely smoothed out on walls, like in the landscape foreground here or the hills in the background. All of it combined gave the photos a bit more of an artificial look, and that's without mentioning the wild star-shaped lens flare around the sun. Now, even though Samsung's is still oversaturated and color-rich a lot of the time, it struggled less with contrasting light and dark spots and was consistently more capable. I sometimes also saw color or white balance would completely change when switching from the primary to the zoom lenses on the Honor phone. Both can zoom digitally up to 100 times. Samsung's extra optical range means it gives more passable results at these extreme lengths like 20 times or 30 times. With a tad more detail. Honor does have the option for AI zoom to switch on, but that's a generative AI feature, and that essentially just uses the visual input to effectively color in a representation of what it sees, often replacing objects in scenes with something completely different, like swapping sheep for cows. At night time, using their respective night modes, Honor's primary camera was better at drawing in more light from the scene in a short space of time, but the Samsung's ultra-wide camera seemed stronger. Again, like daytime though, the Samsung just gave me more consistent results across the main, ultra-wide and the zoom. Honor struggled with the zoom camera sometimes to both focus and with color or white balance, and it also had more of an artificially soft finish to the textures like it did in the daytime. All told, despite the Honor's impressive spec sheet, if I was going to take one of these two out to take photos in the day or the night, the Samsung is the one I would be more drawn to. Shooting video, you can see the differences in color again when moving between the lenses on the Honor, and how that extra zoom means you can get better detail as you push the focal length further on the Samsung. You can also see if you look closely that Samsung seemed to focus quicker and keep the picture in focus as I moved between the lenses, and kept its color consistent for the most part. Now, it wasn't perfect, it sometimes overexposed and has that typical oversaturated green and blue, but Honor was the opposite end of the scale, often appearing darker, a bit crushed and too pink or warm. Now moving on, and I won't spend too much time talking about general speed and performance because for the most part they're both incredibly good. They score well on benchmarks and can tackle the most demanding games pretty easily. I did find in the extreme tests that the Samsung was just a tad more consistent and reliable than the Honor, but there wasn't much in it. One of our tests, the Honor got so warm it just shut the process down, but in daily usage, playing various games, we didn't see any real problems. Neither really beats the OnePlus 13 in terms of keeping going at high demand levels in games like Call of Duty for 20 minutes or longer, but at the same time, most tasks they find very easy. Samsung seemed a bit faster at snapping photos with its zero lag abilities, but really there's not much to note here. As for the battery life, the Honor definitely seemed the stronger of the two, taking them off charge at the same time in the morning, putting them through similar daily use cases. There was a sense the Honor seemed to have just that bit more juice left over at the end of a day. But still, the Samsung seemed to drain more when using the display, especially with the full QHD Plus level switched on, which I think it needs. Neither is a full 2-day battery phone, but the Honor was the one that would get closest for me with my typical pretty light 2 or 3 hours of usage, but neither again matches the OnePlus 13, which easily got me through 2 days. So while performance and battery life aren't wildly different, there is some difference in refilling that empty battery afterwards, at least if you get hold of a charger that can take advantage of the faster speeds. With Honor, that means getting one of Honor's fast 100-watt chargers, but if you do, you'll be able to refill an empty battery to 100% in about 35 minutes. Samsung's 45-watt speeds can't really match that, but you can get fully topped up in just over an hour according to our tests. Now, in the end, I actually really enjoyed my time with both of these phones. Now, if you can find the Honor at a really good price, which I'm told includes an early bird discount in some places, taking it quite a lot lower than the Samsung, it's definitely worth picking up. In fact, if you do find it £200–400 cheaper, that's absolutely the phone that I would pick. It doesn't make sense to spend all that much extra just to get marginally better camera results, but money no object, as a complete experience, is the Samsung I'd recommend to most people. At full retail, it's about £150 more, and that extra gets you a consistency in the cameras, a better display, a more coherent software experience, and longer software support. Let me know what you think of these two phones. Are you going to pick one up, or are you still undecided? Let me know in the comments, or you can grab me on social media. I'm at Cam Bunton in most places. My BlueSky link is down below. If you did like this video, please do leave a thumbs up, subscribe and tap that notification bell, and I'll see you again in the next one. Thanks so much for watching. Bye bye.